Have you been playing a wizard, but you just want to add a little bit more physicality? Has your fighter developed tennis elbow from swinging their sword around one too many times and wish you could just point your finger and end the fight? Well, then look no further than the new Magus class, one of the 2 new classes out of Paizo's recently released Secrets of Magic book for the Pathfinder 2nd edition system. What actually is a Magus? So Magus is a part martial character combined with a part spellcaster. So they cast spells like a wizard, but they have martial training like a fighter. So their key ability trait is either strength or dexterity. They get 8 hit points a level. They are trained in perception. They're expert in fortitude and will saves, but only trained in reflex saves. They get the Arcana skill. They also get 2 skills plus their intelligence modifier in training. They are trained in all simple and martial weapons as well as unarmed. And they are trained also in unarmored, light armor, and medium armor, as well as their spell attack roll and spell DC. The 2 new classes, Magus and Summoner, out of the Secrets of Magic book, gain spell slots in a slightly different way than most other spellcasters. As they gain spells, just like any other class, they gain spell slots, but they only ever retain the highest 2 spell slots that they can cast. So, first level Magus is only going to get 1 first level slot, and eventually they're going to level up high enough to get 2nd level slots. So they're going to get 2 first level spells and 2 2nd level spells, as well as cantrips. Once they are able to cast 3rd level spells, they will actually lose their first level spell slots. And this pattern repeats all the way up to 20th level, where they'll have 2 9th level slots and 2 8th level slots. The Magus does gain a few extra bonus slots when they reach 7th level, but we can go into that later. Another unique ability that the Magus possesses is that while wielding a weapon, they can use their weapon to infuse their magic into it and replace material components with somatic components, and they can draw sigils in the air, so they don't need a free hand to cast spells. Now we're going to talk about Spell Strike. This is a Magus ability that they get at 1st level, and the frequency is you can use it once, and then before you use it again, you must recharge it, but we'll get into that a little later. The requirements of Spell Strike is you cast a 1 or 2 action spell that requires a spell attack roll, then you make a melee strike. The result of your melee strike gives you not only the result of your attack for your strike, but also your spell's effectiveness. There's a couple of little extra rules about how spells work in this way. Your attack also counts as magic and gains the arcane trait. This ability counts as 2 attacks for your multiple attack penalty, but your multiple attack penalty does not increase until you completely finish Spell Strike. Once you've completed Spell Strike, you cannot use Spell Strike again until you recharge, which the Magus gets a special action as a 1 action activity to recharge, or they can cast what's called a conflict spell, which is the Magus's focus spells. Another ability that the Magus gets at 1st level is called Arcane Cascade. This is a stance that Maguses can enter right after casting a spell. This gives them an increase of damage for all their melee strikes based on the spell cast. The Magus also at 1st level selects a hybrid study. Hybrid study represents the martial training in a particular weapon style for the Magus. There's an inexorable iron, which focuses on wielding a 2-handed weapon. While you're in your Arcane Cascade stance, you gain temporary hit points every turn based on half your level. You also gain the complex spell Thunderous Strikes. The Laughing Shadow focuses on wielding a single-handed weapon and having nothing in your offhand. And what this does is, while you're in the stance, you gain a 5-foot increase in movement, or 10 feet if you're unarmored. And you also gain an increase to your Arcane Cascade damage, so long as the target you're attacking is flat-footed to you. The conflict spell you get when you select the Laughing Shadow is called Dimensional Assault. The Sparkling Targ is a shield-focused hybrid study. You automatically gain the shield block feat, and your shield block is allowed to trigger on not only physical attacks, but also magical attacks. And it adds its increase to your saves when you're using it to block magical attacks. It also increases its hardness while you're in your Arcane Cascade stance. You also gain the complex spell Shielding Strike. The Starlit Span is a range-focused hybrid study, which allows you to use ranged weapons instead of melee weapons. As you remember, Spell Strike requires a melee strike, but this allows you to use Spell Strike with ranged weapons so long as you're within 1 range increment of your whatever weapon you're using. This also lets you use spells that normally don't have the range, say like Shock and Grasp. You can use, say if you're using a longbow, you can use Shock and Grasp at range by using a longbow and spell striking with Shock and Grasp. The conflict spell you gain is called Shooting Star. The last hybrid study is called Twisting Tree. This is a staff-focused hybrid study. While you're wielding your staff in one hand, your staff gains the Agile trait, and its damage is increased from a D4 to a D6. While you're wielding your weapon in two hands, it instead gains Parry, Reach, and Trip traits. And while you're in your Arcane Cascade stance, every time you make a strike or a spell strike, you gain a free action to change your grip. You also gain a free action at the end of your turn to switch your hands again. As I mentioned before, the Magus only gets the 2 spell slots in each of their highest and second highest levels. But at 7th level, they actually gain additional spell slots, but these spell slots have restrictions. At 7th level, they gain 2 spell slots at 2nd level. So they'll have 2 studious spell slots at 2nd level, plus 2 3rd level slots, and 2 4th level slots. Those 3rd and 4th level slots, they can put any spell that they have in their spell book during their daily preparation, but the 2 special studious spell slots can only slot in certain types of spells. The options at 7th level are Spider Climb, True Strike, Water Breathing, and 1 additional spell based on your hybrid study. At 11th level, those 2 special studious spell slots actually become 3rd level spell slots. So you lose the 2 level 2 slots and they become 3rd level slots. When that occurs, you gain the ability to slot haste as well as the spells already mentioned, plus each hybrid study gains an additional spell that you can slot into these special slots. Once you hit 13th level, those spell slots change from 3rd level to 4th level slots. So you still only have 2 special studious slots, they just become 4th level. When that happens, you gain an additional spell that you can slot into these special spell slots, and that spell is Fly. And you also gain 1 additional spell slot based on your hybrid study. The Magus class is definitely given a very different feel from each of the hybrid studies, and it really affects how you play your character. So a character who's using the Inexorable Iron, the 2-handed variant, really wants to stay in the fight a long time because they're going to get those temporary hit points every turn, and eventually their studious spell slots, something like Enlarge, gives you more damage, being able to be taller, being able to reach higher foes, and then eventually they're going to get the Earthbind and Dimensional Anchor to be able to keep people on the ground and keep people on your plane to make sure that they stay in the fight with you, which is the place that they don't want to be. You look at the Sparkling Targ and the shield-focused variant, and you have spells like their Conflict spell that lets them attack and then raise their shield. And you have the studious spell slots called Resist Energy, Warding Aggression, and Stone Skin, making you tougher and able to absorb more damage as the fight goes on. And then you look at the Starlit Span style, the ranged style, which gives you not only dark vision, wind wall, and freedom of movement. So it allows you to move wherever you want. You can see in the dark, so you can constantly see your foes, and wind wall to block the enemy projectiles from you. So the class definitely has a significant different feel of each one of the styles, and it really focuses in on continuing to gain benefits to do what you want to do. So the like I said, the 2-handed variant is going to get tougher, and eventually there are some feats that let you select when you cast a spell, you gain hit points, you heal hit points, and be able to attempt to stop negative effects on you. The Laughing Shadow variant, the 1-handed variant, one that you want to focus on targeting things that are flat-footed to you to get that bonus damage, really focus on movement and short-term teleports to be able to get into the opportune position to be able to deal your damage, or to escape just in case the fight is not going well for you. So at the end of the day, why would you play a Magus? So like I said in the beginning, if you like to have a spellcaster that has a little bit more oomph in combat, because you can wear medium armor right off the bat at level 1, you can wear light armor. You don't have to waste a spell casting mage armor. You know, the same thing is like, why would you only play a fighter? Well, now you can add magic to the mix. You can add your cantrips and your other spells and your specialized conflict spells. And as you gain higher levels, you can gain more focus points and more conflict spells. If you ever wanted to play that intelligent fighter that, you know, you always feel that if you wanted to play intelligent fighter and you wanted to put points into intelligence, you would gain some skills, but sometimes you didn't. Sometimes people felt maybe it wasn't worth it because you weren't gaining any combat effectiveness with this. But when you're casting spells without spell striking, you're just pointing and firing a spell. Or remember using your spell attack roll, which is an intelligence based. It's nice to not always have to be attacking. Sometimes you want to lay back and fire those cantrips or those slot spells instead of having to jump right out into melee. And again, if you want to play a wizard, but you always want to, every once in a while you want to get in the mix and swing your sword, or maybe attack with your staff, or use your bow and fire spells out. Key things to remember when you make your spell strike: if you critically hit with your strike, you also critically hit with your spell. There are also, as you level up, there are different feats that do focus on the individual hybrid studies. And there's also feats that are more generalized to the Magus playstyle. There's even a feat at first level that the Magus can take if they get a first level feat. They normally don't. That allows them to get increased damage to their unarmed strikes. So it goes from a D4 to a D6, and it gives them a couple other benefits. So you can even go monk style and punch with your spells if you want to. I think this is a pretty honest rendition of the Magus from first edition. The playtest did have a couple of problems, but they've seemed to iron out most of those problems, and it doesn't feel clunky at all. It feels enjoyable to play. It feels nice to be able to cast magic with melee, jump in melee, jump out, charge your spells, throw a spell, make those knowledge checks. It's all around fun class, and you really should try it out. If you'd like to see more videos like this, give us a thumbs up and throw a comment down below. This is Steve from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gamed. May all your die rolls be 20s, and may you always roll max damage.